In this edition of the Mike On Podcast.
Politics is a dirty game, they say. This narrative has been pushed so much in Nigeria and has gained a deep acceptance predominantly among the Nigerian youth. With the emerging political awareness and participation amongst the youth, it becomes increasingly important to venture into having conversations around this important issue. In every nation, everything rises and falls on the behavior of its politics and politicking. Hence, we cannot look aloof at what has the potency to set the tone of our politics. So many elections have been won, but so many people are cynical about the process. They have refused to believe that there were no manipulations behind the scenes. If it is true that you cannot win an election without playing dirty, what approach do we expect to see from young people who have political ambitions? What will their ideals be? What will the behavior of electorates be toward politics? What kind of nation and governance do we expect? Is the belief that you cannot win an election in Nigeria without playing dirty a myth or a fact? These and more questions will be answered today on Mike On Podcast as Seun Okinbaloye hosts key players in the political space.
The 60% of Us series.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast. And indeed, for the very past few weeks, that elections are being concluded, and there are a lot of reactions. Those who want to challenge the actions and reactions that we're getting to the elections have gone to the court, and their responses to those actions also. But politicians also have moved into something else, something dynamic in as far as this election is concerned. It may not look like an election that is totally called as far as the decision of the people is concerned, because the courts are also looking into some of how these elections really played out in Nigeria. And we're learning a lot of lessons from those things that happened in the 2023 elections. Welcome on board, everyone. Tonight, we're going to be focusing on one very fundamental issue. I know since the NSAS protest, and in fact, before then, there are a lot of calls for Nigerians to be part of the political and the governance structure in their country. But how much of this participation do we get from young Nigerians? That's a big question. Are they really interested in going into politics, getting involved in what shapes the manner in which their lives is being driven by politicians, because it's the politicians that drive governance. So a lot of the times, politics have been described as a dirty game. How much of that dirt did we see in the 2023 elections? Does this, in fact, inspire any kind of confidence for those who are aspiring or willing to run for political office? There are those who have their experience and they are willing to share with us tonight. Perhaps you might get some inspiration and get some insight and perspectives to how these things play out. Tonight, one of the very first persons I will be interacting with is a Labour Party governorship candidate in Lagos State. He's an architect, a young person also, Mr. Gbadebo Rose Viver. He joins us virtually on the podcast. Thank you so much, Mr. Rose Viver, for joining us today. So indeed, it's good to see you. I think it's going to be interesting for us to begin the conversation. And if you see the topic we're asking people today, or we are hoping to get answers to, is it possible to win election in Nigeria without playing dirty? But before I allow you to go straight into it, let me ask you, what really inspired you? This is not the very first time you participated in a general election in Nigeria. You've been wanting to become a senator. Then this time around, you wanted to become governor. Why were you interested? You were hoping to leave everything that you've worked for, or everything you were doing, just to become a politician. Why?
I believe that Plato's words still ring true till today, which is, if you refuse to participate in politics, you'll be governed by people that are inferior to you. And it's not when you think about that particular statement, it just means that if you complain, then the people that are clearly at the helm of affairs cannot do it the way you believe it should be done. So you should get involved. And for me, I've witnessed, I know the history of Lagos. Lagos State is a place that I'm from, it's a place that I'm very proud of. And I know the capacity and the potential of Lagos. And watching it constantly just be mediocre in everything with all the resources it has, I feel that it's extremely important that people that mean well for the state, people that have vision for the state, that can see what it can be, need to get involved in politics and show the people a different way that governance can be delivered, good governance can be delivered to them. So that I'm from Lagos. I love Lagos. I'm passionate about Lagos, and I've been around. I know where the shoe hurts people, and I see how so much inefficiency, so much bad design is causing problems in the lives of so many people. And that's why I felt that, it's important to get involved and run and show the people what we have to offer, a new type of Lagos.
Coming from the private sector, there are ways that private sector businesses are being run. But what surprised you the most when you first ventured into politics?
Well, to be honest with you, I think that, well, there's always the idea that um, you're going into a field that people have a set um, idea, a set of values. But then with politics in Nigeria, you come to find that it's a spectrum, an infinite spectrum of personalities, of characters. And the idea that politics is dirty is one that shows, you know, when you see the extent that desperation will take, whether it's people in your party, people outside of your party, to sell their idea, right? So, and just the ability for people to just sit down and lie and create narratives all in the name of propaganda. I think that comes at a certain level of surprise, but then you get used to it, right? You start to understand that that's how they play their game. If your focus is on um, substance and ideas, then you'll be surprised about things like that. And I can imagine people that their focus is about propaganda, they'll be surprised at your substance, right? So ultimately, I feel that it's politics. Also, the main thing about politics is being able to build consensus, being able to be all things to all men, and a good politician continues to increase that capacity to be all things to all men and be relatable and be able to sell your vision to as many people as possible. So those are some of the factors, but I think um, I look forward to politics that has a lot more honesty, a lot more integrity, and a lot more values that put the people first.
I mean, one thing that is important that perhaps we need to touch on, because we're going to be touching on the dirt and those dirty side of politics. That
Yeah,
hopefully, maybe in the nearest future, we shouldn't be talking about these dirt and this dirty side of politics. We should be looking at the very best of our people getting into governance, because
yeah,
governance is, politics is the vehicle to governance. Um, and a lot of people do not understand that the best of us governing us are determined by a group of people who are political party members. So there
yeah,
is a collegiate system where the party determines who gets a ticket. Then we have set of people who run in the general election, and the general people vote for them. So the political party system has its own structure, which a lot of people need to
yeah,
understand, that you cannot be in governance without first being a
yeah.
member of a political
My other
party.
party.
That is what
Yes,
the Nigerian law prescribes, and that is what is stipulated in the Nigerian electoral law. That is the standard. I mean, you being in PDP before now, um, so, and there are those things that you need to do to get recognized, to even being able to get the party's ticket. What
yes.
perhaps when you were in PDP and you wanted to be senator, what shocked you the most? That what the information you got that they told you before you can get a ticket.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I have to say that I've been very fortunate. I'm sorry, my boy does not want to. See, sorry, take your time. Yeah, please. So what got me, I didn't last of that. What got me in that whole process started was a situation where we go and meet all the leaders and talk to them and engage with them fully. And there wasn't really anything shocking per se. I mean, it was really about to selling yourself to the party structure, explaining why you are the better candidate, um, and and that's it. I don't. There was no. I think that a lot of people, once they understand that they need to be part of the political party and day to day meeting with people, engaging in voter them, engaging the party members. It's not rocket science, to be honest with you. I do think that there is an unfortunate focus on money and people spending money and how they would judge the quality of a candidate by the amount of money that person can potentially spend for the election, right? But that being said, elections cost money. Um, but then I also feel that if you are going to be disruptive, money should not be your main focus. It should not be your main um, um, it should not be your main priority. Because if you're a politician of value, people will donate to you. And I mean, especially with the disruption that His Excellency Peter Obi has shown in this recent election, money is not everything. If you can get the people to be excited about your ideas and truly have hope in your brand and believe in you, you will not need to spend so much money. And I feel that anybody that's interested in politics in the next 2 decades must take time out to study um, how Peter Obi ran this last election because truly is the most disruptive election that Nigeria has seen in since 1999, as far as I'm concerned.
So, I mean, Nigeria, it's believed that Nigeria has had a long history of political corruption. Um, Presently, the nation is ranked very poorly on the Corruption Perception Index, which, of course, is one way to measure the level of corruption in countries around the world. Um, this ranking of corruption is usually often attributed to widespread corruption in politics and government. In fact, there is one statement that's linked to General Abdulsalami Abubakar, former head of state, who said that people do anything to be elected. On that premise, can you give us an understanding if you did anything to get the ticket of the PDP when you wanted to run for Senate?
Again, like I said, the Central run in PDP was one that was very. It was one that the party felt that there was a whole not too young to run movement going on. And I was just 35 at the time, and people felt that yes, let's show that we are ready for a new generation to get involved in politics. And I had a lot of goodwill within the party, the entire structure of the party. So I won't say that there was anything out of the ordinary that I had to do. And then also when you look at the governorship primary for the Labour Party, the margin in the primaries was 9 delegates, right? And again, those 9 people were focused on saying that, you know what, we want somebody that fits a particular mold to be the flag bearer for Lagos State. And we're not moved by monies or whatever influence the person I was contesting with brought to the fore. So again, I think that what we've seen within parties is mainly money, people outspending each other in terms of how much they give delegates. But then what we've now seen with elections is a situation where, I mean, you saw last election in Lagos State, a lot of violence, a lot of propaganda, a lot of intimidation. And that's where I feel the desperation comes in.
So now, when you made a switch, you went from PDP to Labour Party, and I mean, if anybody is watching you tonight and listening to you, what would you say are those dirty side of politics inside the political party, other than what you said tonight, that anybody want to go into politics need to be aware of?
Okay, so for me, I always feel I make decisions based on hope and disruption, right? So I don't go in thinking if you go in believing that politics must be dirty, you must be shooting people, you must be killing people, you will find that that's what you attract to yourself, right? When I ran for Senate in Lagos West, I walked the entire length of Mushin, um, I worked the entire length of Mushin. There was no violence. Nobody shot at me. I had no boys went to go and be roughing anybody up or anything like that. But my predecessor that ran before me will tell you how Mushin was violent. His boys had to go and shoot this person, and this one did this, and all of that, right? So ultimately, um, your attitude, and I mean, let's use Peter Obi for example. Peter Obi came into politics, into his election saying no, they give shishi. And frankly, the win in Lagos State, if the party spent up to 5 or 10 million naira that day, I'm very surprised. So you literally saw the manifestation of that. So you also have to be confident to set a new standard, to disrupt. If you just want to do the status quo, then you will carry on and you just keep the status quo. But if you're actually interested in disrupting the entire thing, then you will be able to come in and say, okay, these are the goals I'm aiming for, this is what I want to attain, and I'm going to align with people that will also allow for that to happen, right? So, that's my reality, you know people come in believing all sorts of things. Some people, for them, is spiritual, you know, armor and arming themselves up and joining calls or whatever. Some people is violence. They need their boys to have their guns and all of that. Some people is about going to the people and selling the mandate. So ultimately, it depends on you. But I believe that if you, as a young person coming to politics, your focus should be on changing the status quo and being as disruptive as possible. And in doing that, we need to redefine politics because for so long we've left. They say politics is dirty because we left politics for the dirty people for a very long time. Now you have professionals coming in, people that mean well coming in, trying to clean up the system, and it's slowly becoming normalized, right? And when we do this over another two election cycles, then you start to have very decent people that mean well for people start to get into the helm of affairs. And then we'll redefine what politics is. So next time when you're having a conversation, to not be conversation about the dirty side of it, to be okay, how are you able to meet up to these standards?
I mean, it's interesting to know that this year's election was touted as going to be the election of the young people. But I mean, from what we saw after this election, do you think any young person is encouraged to wanting to go into politics based on the outcome and the manner in which the election went?
No, this election was, especially for Lagos State, if you look at it nationally, try the first election. You have situations where sitting governors lost Senate tickets, certain positions. You have situations where governors could not put in their successors. You have situations where governors of one party, the presidential candidates of another party won in their state. So we have to say that we will give some kudos to INEC, right? We'll give some kudos to INEC. At the same time, the level of disappointment, considering how hopeful people were about the idea of electronic transmission of votes, about the idea of transparency, about the idea that we saw how Oshun conducted their elections prior to that, how Ondo conducted elections. People got hope that our elections have been deepened. I'm speaking particularly about Lagos. It's extremely unfortunate because a lot of those hopes were dashed. Now, our hope now lies in the judiciary to correct that wrong because, like I say, it's either voter apathy is going to double, or you have a situation where people will prepare for elections not with manifestos, ideas in mind, but they will start preparing for elections in relation to violence. And that's a very dangerous precedent to set for a state like Lagos. Because normally, what I've found is that the ruling party wants a situation where what they've done can just, be swept under the carpet and everybody just pretends as if it did not happen. But there are consequences to all of these things. And anybody that's preparing for an election studies the election prior to that, studies the elections of the previous 4 years, right? So anybody that's going to be looking at the 2023 elections is going to be thinking, okay, how can I win based on what happened last time, right? So I'm hoping that the court does the needful, and I'm praying that is done so to keep us away from that route. But yes, it's extremely disappointing to the young people. Say, I don't think that Lagos has witnessed the type of voter awareness and voter awakening that happened in Lagos State. I don't think Lagos State has seen that in a very, very long time. So, but we're encouraging people to, Rome was not built in a day. Let's not lose hope. We cannot give in to what the status quo wants, which is for us to be disillusioned and apathetic and just leave the reins to them to decide what and when they want to do it. We have to resist that and keep engaged.
I mean, do you agree that there is more evil in the party politics in wanting to get a ticket than what you find outside? Evil in the sense that you what inhibits people from getting to moving forward to achieving their aim, considering the kind of politics that is being played in Nigeria, especially at the political party level.
It depends on the party, right? It depends on the party. Now, if you're coming from an approach of if you can't beat them, join them, or you want to be in the winning party, then you must also take into cognizance that there are a lot of people on the queue. A lot of people are always attracted to the beaten path, right? The path where there's already a road. So a lot of people go and join them and stay there because there are benefits. I mean, they are the ruling party, so there are a lot of benefits to that. So that kind of internal politics can be very, very unnerving, right? Because there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of interest, and when you have that kind of situation, then there's so much that goes on there. Now, if you're in the opposition, um, I will not say it's easier, but the interest that you're going to have to manage will not be, you can't compare it to the interest of the ruling party. So that's one. And then also, if you, like for instance, the Labour Party, my experience of it was that at least I give it 65% in terms of creating a new value, redefining politics, and saying that showing that there's a value for competence, integrity, intelligence, cerebral capacity. These things were celebrated within the party. Yes, there are elements in the party that wanted to take us back to the status quo. But predominantly, I mean, I will never have emerged as candidate of Labour Party if those values were not there. Because if it's by money uh, or the it's by money or the status quo, I mean, I will not have emerged. It was people that were visionary that felt that this person gives us more of a value proposition that we want, and we're able to push this thing forward. So that's it. I think it depends on the party. It depends on the caucus in which you come into the party, um, and it depends on what you are willing to do. Right? Some people are willing to stay on the queue and then get in at the state assembly level, get in at the House of Rep level, or contest for governor. Right? At each level, there's a price to be paid. So, but ultimately, and you said this earlier on, the most important thing is to join the party and join the party early, not a year to election or yeah, not. I mean, with Labour Party, I was in PDP with build structures and everything. Same thing with Excellency Peter Obi, and then they moved, but they were already in a party, right? So it's important to join the party, start getting familiar with the political structures within your local government, within your ward, get familiar with the people there, and these things don't cost much, especially when you start early. Just attending meetings, bringing refreshments there, whatever help that can be given to people, be of help. A gentleman called me before you called. His wife is a hospital. She has CS and, you know, problematic hospital services, but they're in need of blood right now. So they can ask for an amount, you give them what you can afford, and they'll remember that because outside political season is when the real politics is played, right? In terms of galvanizing people and building that energy that's going to take you into the election.
I mean, if it was in other climes, I mean, you've schooled outside of this place, what would you, in comparison now, what would you say that is rather unnerving in the Nigerian political space about our politics that you wish was never there?
Well, the level of desperation, like we saw, the tribal card, the tribalism that was played, the ethnic profiling, that's something that's not in most developed countries at the moment. I mean, if you look at the American or British or European democracies, if you look at England, you have an Indian man that's prime minister, you have another Indian man that's mayor of London. So people have seen past, started see past race to an extent, see past tribe, and they're focused on excellence, focused on quality leadership. So that's something I'd love to see in our democracy. We still have a while to go. We're a young democracy, but I feel that that is still something that we can look forward to, and to be better, we'll be better off for it.
Interesting. I mean, if with what played out, are you still interested in pushing to run for office?
Certainly, I mean, we're in court now. We have a very good case. We have a very good case. I have a lot of faith in our judiciary by God's grace. God will guide them to do what is right. Um, but the honest truth is, politics for me is a calling to serve, and that will happen whether you're in office or not, right? The ability to make a difference and impact for your basic constituents, and just you know make life better, leave the world better than you met it, or leave your area better than you met it. And that's something that's going to be consistent. In terms of pursuing politics again, certainly. For me, we have a situation where people came out to vote. I did not buy these votes. We buried the gentleman in Shomolu, I think it was yesterday, Friday, yes. We buried him. He came out and stood to protect my vote, right? I mean, he was not even alive to get the money for agents. So people have died, people have sacrificed, people have lost their sight, people have bullet pellets in their bodies up to now, and people have given so much to be able to push the way we pushed in the last election. So it'll be extremely disappointing for me to just fade into the darkness. I can't do that. It's not even um, something that is in my control anymore. So we're going to stand up, we're going to continue to engage, we're going to continue to galvanize people to get involved because at the end of the day, it's supposed to be our Lagos, right? So it's a Lagos that's supposed to work for everybody. And with politics, the more you stay in it, the stronger you become, the larger your network, the more name recognition you have, and you only truly lose when you give up. And that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Just for a moment, Mr. Rosevival, I'm being joined by Honorable Tony Nwulu, who sponsored the Not Too Young to Run bill. Was a former member of the House of Representatives. Thanks so much, Honorable Nwulu, for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you, Sean.
And interesting, you are one of those who saw years ago that Nigerian youth need to participate more in politics. But the question we're dealing with tonight, that is it possible to deal with this dirty side of politics, in Nigeria? And I mean, you've wanted to become governor, you've been a member of the House of Representatives. If you can highlight for us tonight, what are these dirty side of Nigeria politics? They say politics is dirty, politics is dirty. What are these dirty side of the politics?
Honestly speaking, I've heard that word used and that phrase used over the years, and I can't really point out to what people call deity in politics, because it's as good as when you go to, in every setup, you go to church. Some people will tell you, um, some churches don't do certain things as as expected. But then when it comes to politics, I have always opposed that word or that phrase, deity politics, because let me be frank with you, that phrase has made a lot of people that should have participated in politics. All right, it has stopped a lot of people from not participating in politics. I don't know those that I don't know what pleasure or what joy some people derive in projecting that narrative about deity politics. If I could really hear from you and you point out few of the perceived deaths in politics, because one,
Bible
if you've
talks about
broken-
money politics.
if you've broken,
How prevalent is that?
okay, so it's relative. I would choose to call that relative because I mean, while one politician comes out and accuses the other of playing money politics, you may find out often that while one is crying, it's because the other outspent you. Do you understand? So it's not like you're coming to equity with clean hands either, But then I want to take a cue from what I overheard when I came in about joining a political party, participating early. So you have people that join these processes at the 11th hour, and then out of desperation they do a whole lot of things. But you see, if you plan to run for office, it's not something you just wake up overnight and decide to join the race. You should have planned before that, had your programs, had your objective, your visions, whatever you want to do when you get into power. But what we have is a situation where some are even so desperate that you see them not deciding to run, but after a while, probably before the closing or the deadline given out by INEC, you see them rush to go and pick up a form, and some actually go pick up those forms because they want to hedge. They want to sit and wait for people to come and approach them, and then possibly bribe them to step down and all of that. So we see all those funny things in politics. And then yes, if you're getting involved in elective politics, of course you should expect all of these funny plays. It's still a play. That's the way I see it. It's just a play. You have to, one has to win and one has to lose, but it's a play after it all. It's a play.
Well, I mean, so before you get a ticket, I was asking Gbadebo earlier about the PDP and the issue of emerging as a candidate and his own experience. In your own experience, because you left your former party where you where you held office as House of Reps, you went into your state to want to contest for governor. And there were reasons why you probably didn't get a ticket there. What are those things that usually stop people from getting it? You have what it takes to be a candidate, but there are some strongholds that just hold you back from being able to get a ticket.
So I'm going to be very frank with you. It was a move I wouldn't advise anybody to do.
And what's that?
I like you losing that ticket in your party, because I mean, clearly what it showed for me was before I was playing politics in Lagos, right?
Yeah.
So by the time I moved to Imo, probably I was quick, because I had to also do my own assessment. Forget what other people tell you. When you lose, I mean, self-truth is best truth. So I told myself the truth. I had to do an assessment. Why did I lose these processes? Why did I even leave PDP in the first place to go and join another party? It was very clear. I got into Imo State because I was coming from Lagos State. But then I hadn't done the much I needed to do within the party structures in Imo State. Right? So I went into a state that already had a structure, had a political system, had people that were there before I came in. And you don't expect people to just jettison who they had known all the while, or the people they had known all the while, to follow you, a newcomer. It doesn't happen like that all the time. So for me, I understood where my challenges were. And clearly, I knew there was no way I was going to win those that the people had known all the while.
Yeah.
Over time, these are people that had been supporting party members, sponsoring party structure, giving out the money they needed to give out, everything, whatever support that is needed.
So structure
in the party,
is very important.
It is very important.
If you run in a place where you don't have structure, you are just wasting your time.
Honestly speaking, in most cases, you're wasting time.
So those who were asking, who said Labour Party or Obedient didn't have structure, what were they talking?
No, you can't say.
Is it the same kind of structure you're talking about?
Because, at the end of the day, Obedience had a structure. The Obedience is a structure. The Obedience itself.
It may not be your traditional structure,
yes,
but in some way it was a structure.
It's still a structure. Because however...
Were they able to pull that structure in 2023 election?
Absolutely. We saw what they did. Today, we have quite a good number of reps and some senators from that structure.
About 30-something reps.
Whether the structure existed online, whether it existed offline, there was still a structure. Because if you go on Twitter, you will see a community of obedience, right? And that is, because some people, I think the process of digitalization has also come into play in our politics, because some people used to think that, politics must start and end with me attending ward meetings, having all of that. But yes, a block. People can come up together and say, this is what we want. And that becomes an online structure. New structure, whichever way you want to call it, digital structure, obedience were still a structure. And that's what it is. So you can't take away structure from anything you were doing. What Peter did with obedience was setting up more like a hybrid structure that dealt with both online, offline, everyone. If you're a market woman and you're obedient, you're a part of the obedient structure.
But it's a different kind of structure that we have seen in the past.
From what we have seen in the past, which is the evolution we're talking about in politics, of course. There would always be room for that. Don't take out the fact that part of the Not Young to Run bill then also to introduce independent candidacy.
But that part
did not sell, which I also think that after a while it's going to come up.
Years after, Tony, since President Buhari signed the Not Too Young to Run bill to law in this was before 2019, I think it was 2018, right? When he signed it. And now, are you happy with the result that you're seeing so far? The kind of intention that came into your head when you were thinking about that bill. Are you happy with what you've seen so far?
Okay, so for me, I won't say it's about happiness, really. I would rather say it's about having it in our constitution, right? It's not in our constitution. The part where you needed to be 35 years before you run for House of Reps is no longer there. Today, from Imo State, we have someone that is 28 years, right? So whether you choose to wake up tomorrow and realize that there is a bill that has reduced the age to 25 years for you to run for office, it's entirely your business. The issue is that we have been able to reduce that age gap, right? It is now at 25. I mean, if you choose to take advantage of it, you're not going to force people to participate or to run for offices because you've reduced the age, right? if you want to put it that way, also do not forget that political parties oftentimes give women nomination fee. Waive nomination fees for women, right? And what men will pay millions, you see women just get it free. But then, how many women do you still see participate in those processes? So, issue here is it there in the Constitution? Yes. Can you participate at 25 years or 25 and a half or 26 years? Yes, it is there.
Let's be truthful to ourselves. If you don't have money, do you go into politics?
My
realistically,
my take on that is yes and no. And I'm going to tell you the yes part. The yes part is when I crafted the Not Too Young to Run, it's not about the how would I put it now? Look, it's not about you getting into office. Immediately you hear that it's election time, then you go and run. No. Sometimes it's about the process, right? You intend to run, you intend to participate in the elections, in the upcoming elections in 2027, right?
Mm-hmm.
You should have by now started your processes. You may be 22 years or 23 years now, but by now you should have started your processes, knowing that within that period you would be of age to run it. And what do I mean? You should start with amazing and acquiring some social capital, right? Social
getting
capital,
known wherever you are.
Getting known, doing things, making yourself available, letting people know what you stand for. Wherever you go, whether you're drinking with your friends at the bar, right? Because at the end of the day, let me tell you, every other politics is local.
Mm-hmm.
You're drinking palm wine somewhere with your local men, your people, your folks, and all of that. Let them know what you represent. Use that opportunity to tell people who you are. You're attending a burial, a function in the village. Let the people know what you represent. It is not when you hear that it's election time, out of nowhere, and then you know you don't have money to do all of that. You know you don't have money. Because if you want to talk about money politics, the Labour Party has also, demystified quite a good number of those money bags. We've seen people lose election, people that ordinarily you never would believe. I don't want to mention names here, but there are people that, for me, I felt that theirs was automatic. They were going to return to the House of Reps. If you talk about the money and everything that will make them return to the House of Reps, they were not lacking. But suddenly, from nowhere, you see someone that didn't even do anything.
And some people will say that it looked so much that Peter Obi and the Labour Party as a party gave a lot of people. Take, for example, there was a candidate who died in Enugu State for a senatorial seat, ran against a former governor, a sitting senator, and it was the dead candidate was replaced. And people will imagine that by the brother, but people imagine that the candidate or the person who replaced the dead candidate was not popular. But again, he defeated someone who has been the former governor, a sitting senator. So, is it a new order in our politics? Would this continue actually?
Well, whether it will continue or not is what I cannot answer. I'll be very frank with you. I don't know. The thing about Labour, whether it continues, it would be as a result of how Labour Party also manages these wins, right? It's not like I would always say, winning is one thing, managing your victory is another complete keg. So whether the Labour Party is able to manage their wins is left to be seen. Whether the lawmakers, whether the governors, whether the senators elected on that platform are able to demonstrate and perform above par, and Nigerians are able to see them as, oh, okay, these are true representatives of what the yearnings of Nigerians are. Then it's other than that, what you just be seeing is an old woman wearing a young lady's dress. So not until we see and assess their performances, right, then you will be able to tell clearly if these people are truly different or they are just wolves in sheepskin.
It is not enough to get a ticket. That's one leg of the game. And the major one is it's major to also to get a ticket. You get a ticket, then you now start battling how you want to win the election. So you are up against external opponents. You come against internal opponents. Then after you've gotten the ticket, you are up against external opponent. This is one place a lot of people think that is another problematic area, in the sense that there are ways that you can sway voters. From the 2023 election, does the outcome give anybody hope that you can be nobody and yet be somebody by being elected in office?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've seen it. It's not about the hope. It is what we have seen.
But the governorship election, the governorship election is still being between four major political parties. APC had theirs, PDP had theirs, NNPP, or does this still and Labour
So
Party
I'll
has
tell you
one?
one thing.
Does this still come back to the issue of structure?
I'll tell you something. Our democracy is evolving as it is. Our electoral processes are also evolving. Come to think of it, Sheung, in this same country, 2015, 2011, whenever there were elections scheduled, you see young people playing football.
Mm-hmm.
And in this election, show me one clip of all the clips you've shown on channels and every other place. Show me one clip that had
people playing
football
like before. So there is a change. Things that the trend is changing.
Aren't we seeing it? Aren't we seeing the participation? In as much as to some people it was a loss, to some people it was a win, the truth remains that the processes are they've already begun and we can't reverse it. Let me also cite one instance. For once, we saw a returning officer being celebrated, given chieftaincy title, someone buys an SUV for her, receiving multiple awards and all of that. What does that tell you? Today, other returning officers are seeing someone being celebrated for
good work.
That's the truth.
And someone is being there. There is a public clamor
for the other one that is missing, that is wanted and can be seen, whichever. Whether I don't know, I can't speak to that. The police should know better. But the issue now is we are seeing one being celebrated and the other. So it depends on where you want to write your name in history, right? Do you want your children to live with knowing that their father did a disservice somewhere and wherever they go, he follows them? Or do you want your children to be proud of who their father or their mother represented when given a national assignment?
Let me ask you straight up. Is it possible to win an election in this country without playing dirty?
You've come back to that same question again. And yes. I told you, I don't know what
dirty means. I will
ask
it over and over until I get
until you tell me what dirty. Until you tell me what dirty, because what dirty means to me, people have OCD. What dirty means to me may not be what dirty means to you. So, dirty is a relative term. And I don't know where dirty has a space in politics. One, a party has their constitution. A party has its own constitution. If you violate any of that or you're in breach of that, anybody can take you to court. Then there is also the Constitution of the Federal Republic. If you violate any of that, and that is a beautiful thing that I have seen Peter B do, right? So instead of playing dirty by saying take to the streets and destroy things, you've seen him say, no, let us go and test the waters in the judiciary, meaning that he is conforming himself with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Right? So dirty is Shehu, you tell me something offensive, I cross over there and slap you. You go and report me to the police for physical abuse or assault. Another thing is that you tell me something I don't like, and I look at it constitutionally, you've breached my rights, and I'll go and report you to the police. So it depends on what you call dirty. If you talk about money in politics and like what I have seen being circulated, really, is it possible to win elections in Nigeria without money? I have answered that already. Sometimes your social capital can take you further than your money can take you. We've seen people that brought out money, lots of it, on election day and still lost election. We've seen people win people that ordinarily were not at par with them financially. So money it varies. It's about where you are and then the consciousness of the people you're talking to and how they perceive your message, how they've received you. There are two different things. You can come and give people a lot of money and they say, no, well, thank you for the money. Probably you've stolen our money before, but we want to vote this party. But one thing I must tell all of us here is I am most encouraged by the elections of these last elections. All of what has gone on may not be ideal, of course. We all understand the problems from INEC. INEC needs to get her house in order. A lot was wrong. You know, I mean, over time, you would have seen me go back and forth at your ERAD, your ERAD center and the rest of them. I observed that live, and it is everything about the election. I believe INEC can do a lot better. INEC missed an opportunity, a golden opportunity to eke its name or her name on gold, because I mean, considering the amount of money that was deployed for this whole process, one would have expected something better than what INEC offered Nigerians. No doubt about that. You know, I mean, at some point I felt that finally we have gotten it right with the beavers and the portal, you know, the IRA.
But does it look like we are getting it right?
So I also want to believe that there should be, same way you have a Hall of Fame, there should be a Hall of Disgrace. There should be a Hall of Disgrace.
And who should be listed in that Hall of Disgrace?
INEC should occupy a very prominent position in Hall of Disgrace. INEC should occupy a very huge, you know, coming out to admit that you had technical hitches is not enough. Admitting that, I mean, this is an election that everyone would have expected that you got your house in order. You can't just make so much promises. I know that this election had a lot of Nigerians in that, a lot of diasporans came back because of this election, right? And then you, after making so much promises, how there was going to be live transmissions of results and then live uploading and all of those promises you made, only for you to now change the whole thing. And you are announcing results while there were still, results were still being uploaded to your portal. Nigeria should move. And you know, the crazy thing about this whole thing, let me tell you, because I sat beside some dudes that came in from Ghana to also as observers, right? And but I just had to throw the question. So, what are you guys taking back to Ghana from your experience? And you know, the answer those guys gave me, they were like, honestly speaking, I don't think we want to take anything from Nigeria to Ghana.
Let me bring back Mr. Rose Viver into the conversation. And I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Honorable Nwulu here about the basic question that we're asking today. Is it possible to win an election in Nigeria without playing dirty? I'd like you to be candid and tell us tonight if that is possible. Hello, are you there?
Sure, are you talking to me?
Yes, I'm asking you. I mean, so the question is it possible to win an election in Nigeria without playing dirty in some ways?
I believe that Peter Obi showed us that it's possible. I believe that Peter Obi achieved that in 2023, and I believe that the court process, by God's grace, will show that. He came in and disrupted the entire system. I believe that if you are going to come in and play the game as it currently is being played, um, you are going to have to do some kind of what you call dirty politics, right? You are going to be looking to out compromise the person that has compromised INEC. You are going to be looking to compromise the police, compromise the forces to get your own area boys to fight the area boys that they are bringing to disenfranchise voters and things like that. And while all of these things might be done at a smaller scale, um, I believe that the true path that Nigeria needs to focus on is disruption, which has been shown to work. Because the voter apathy that has existed in Lagos State for so long is primarily because a lot of people just were not motivated to come out. You know, they not believe in the process. And INEC got us to, for a first time in a long time, believe in the process. And like Honorable said, people flew in from outside of the country to come and participate. I know at least 6 or 7 people that came into this country to vote. You know, so I'm hoping that in this period leading up 2027, something has to be done. Something has to be done. I worry, to be honest, I worry that if an APC government stays in office and is now fully in charge of INEC, that we are not going to have credible elections in the next 8 years. Because,
why did you say so?
Because when you look at, I mean, for instance, I'm in tribunal and I know the level of damage and level of corruption that, INEC participated in to create those elections for governorship. And then furthermore, I know the actual results that His Excellency Peter Obi got in Lagos for the presidential. And that could have only been done with the internal workings of INEC. Now, all of this is being done to put in the president-elect, right? You have a situation where somebody that worked with him or worked for him was in charge of data and in charge of tech in INEC as well. And then we saw what happened in governorship elections in Lagos State. So if people are doing this and they are not in full control of the helms of power, because at a point people felt that the current president, Muhammadu Buhari, was actually really putting a lot of things in place to ensure a credible election. So it would be quite worrying to imagine what these people that pushed all these infractions and corrupted so many of these institutions, what kind of election they will call. What kind of election will this group of people
so you fear that there's a possible manipulation of the judicial process?
No. I'm not saying anything about judicial process. I'm talking about INEC, right? I'm talking about INEC, and I'm talking about also violence, the police force, right? I mean, in Lagos State, there are situations where police were working hand in hand with the ballot snatchers. How many ballot snatchers have been arrested by the police? Right? So these people were working in the interest of the APC in Lagos State. So what would that group of people, what kind of election would they then put forward to Nigerians, to Lagosians even in 2027? I mean, it's worrying. It's something to worry about, to be honest.
So this concept of politics is a dirty game, do you think is more of a myth or is fact?
Politics is a dirty game if you are going to play the status quo game. I think that's the most honest answer. If 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 Labour Party came in and said that we're going to play the PDP APC game, then yes, we'll subscribe to that. But what we came in to do was to disrupt the entire system. So it's going very difficult for people to say that Labour Party played a dirty game.
But in reality, there is a dirty game, depending on whether you want to play it or not.
Certainly, I think that we'll be lying to ourselves if we say that. Because when we say a dirty game, I think that that's a very abstract thing. Let's get into detail, right? If a set of politicians corrupt or compromise the police force, if a set of politicians corrupt or compromise the electoral commission, if a set of people create a situation where the agreed rules of an election are not followed to favor one person, and if a set of people are able to spin so many narratives that they know are lies and push that forward in the process of an election, then those things are not acceptable. They are not things that speak to integrity or speak to cleanliness. I mean, if you are using the word dirty, right? So it's not a clean process. At the same time, all of those things are people trying to manage votes and the counting of it. But you see, the raw power is with the people. And when a huge amount of people come out, even when you try to manipulate and do all of those things, those numbers will show. If they don't show because they've compromised INET, then by God's grace, they will show when people go to the court.
No, but
right?
you had a feeling that you were going to win this election.
Yeah.
How do you think you were played out that you did not win? You came second.
Oh, no. The level of violence, level of intimidation, level of corruption of our traditional institutions. I mean, people were doing Oro during the day. I'm sure you know about the Oro rights. Oro rights are never supposed to be done in daylight, right? You have a situation where they were beating people. I mean, 8 of our members have died. 8. We have about 6 that lost their eyesight, and now 23 have bullet pellets in their bodies. This level of violence, I mean, they imported thugs from all over southwest of all over the southwest. We had a situation where except polling in the 20, 10, 15 thugs, APC thugs that were moving around polling, and were even stay as polling units. And this is not just in non-indigenous dominated areas. This was in Shomolu, this was in Koshope, this was in Ikeja. There's a young man whose leg was broken. Because he was working as an agent for the Labour Party, right? A young woman, her hand was broken as well. So the level of violence and voter intimidation and suppression is exactly what happened. I don't feel I was played out. I believe that there was a violent imposition of the ruling party, and we're going to do everything we can to get justice at the court.
So if there's one thing with the benefit of hindsight, that if, for example, you are going to consult or advise someone about running for election in a game where you might be outplayed by your opponent in a dirty way, what are those things that you have learned?
Honestly, I feel that what you must do, you must ensure that your structure on ground is as strong as possible. I don't want to advise. See, I don't want to be advising that we must have our own, because what happened in Lagos State, the only thing that could have solved it is if we had our own vigilante force to fight back this level of pressure and things. Just in terms of security forces,
a counter force,
and to counter force that, and we also had our own group of people, but this was These are people that are just supposed to be supervising and ensuring that things are not happening at polling units. But it was completely overwhelmed because these people declared a war on Lagos State. They declared a war, and nobody was prepared for that, right? Nobody was prepared for that. We saw what happened in presidential election. Yes, there was some bits and pieces of all of those things, but mainly it was INEC irregularity. And we had people at those places. But I mean, in Ikeja, there was an entire road where they came and chased away all our polling agents. In Ojo, there was no election. They chased people away and burnt the ballot things. So now, if I sit down here now and I say that everybody should now get their own force that is violent, that's going to match these people blow for blow, machete for machete, what do we then gain from blood spilling all across Lagos State? And that's why, in the end, my prayer is that God will grant the judges the wisdom to do what's right and actually direct them towards justice. And that's why there's judiciary. Because you see, judiciary exists because you take out my eye, I take out your eye, you come back and take out two of my people's eye, I go back, take out two of my people. It just continues to escalate. It's judiciary that can just set us away from that path of retribution, right? And that's why they are so important. And I'm really hopeful and praying that they'll guide us towards justice.
So there is someone on Twitter, Floxy Ijagbemi, who says only the rich can win election in Nigeria. Do you agree?
I'll say that Peter Obi beat Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu in Lagos State, and Peter Obi did not spend 1% or have access to the resources that Bola Ahmed Tinubu had in Lagos State. So, you see, you want to lead people, you must be resourceful. You must be resourceful. You must be a person of value. Even if you don't have the money yourself, you should be able to sell yourself so that people can believe in you and support you, right? There are a number of state assembly, House of Rep candidates that ran in Labour Party. They did not have a huge amount of money, but today they are winners. You have people in Ethiopia, candidates in Ethiopia, it's not as if we're spending millions against someone like Obanikoro and Banky W. But today he's a House of Rep candidate, right? So have value, work with your party, galvanize people, and I mean, I don't use money as an obstacle. If you don't have the capacity or the money to run for governor, then run for state assembly. If you are not able to do that, then support a candidate. Help him print posters, help him share posters, or her share posters. Because at the end of the day, when you are forming government, it's not one person that's going to be in all the positions. You're still going to be looking at people in the party to form government with, right? And ultimately, it's in their success that the government will be successful. Government is not a one man show, right? It's in a collaborative effort. So, whether you have the money or don't have the money, just get involved, bring value, and people recognize that value.
All right. Let me get in one or two opinion and views of people who are listening on Twitter Spaces. Artimi Blaze, Durotimi Daudu of Lagos on Twitter. Your mic is on. What are your views? Or do you have any question to ask the speakers tonight on the possibility of winning an election in Nigeria without playing dirty? I don't know if Timmy Blaze is there, but I can see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, please go ahead. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, and it's a really interesting topic, I must say. But I would like to just start off by saying that I've heard a lot of narratives being painted here. This is the first time that youths are getting involved on this level. I voted in Lagos, and youths were still playing football on the streets. It happened. There were several videos. Maybe those that are saying it need to check. And if you also look at the election results this particular time, I think if you compare it with previous years, I was trying to do the math, but I think there was even lesser participation, like what was projected on the media that was going to happen. That 80 million people are going to vote or this. No, it didn't happen like that. So there was less participation even in this election, right? So just clearing that up, I also like to expand this concept of playing dirty in politics, because I've heard a lot of narrative like, oh yes, Peter Obi has come this time around. He did it when you're mentioning examples of people who have not played dirty politics. Let's expand this a little bit. So when we talk about playing dirty in politics, we also include things that we've complained about in the past, like inducing voters with money, food items, which the Labour Party also did. So I don't think that it did not play dirty, right? We talk about bowing down to the same godfathers that have destroyed us for years. Labour Party and Peter Obi also did that. We talk about manipulating people based on primitive, tribal, and religious emotions. The Labour Party also did that. So it's not, if we're talking about politicians who did not do that, we had a lot of them in this particular election cycle. We had Adebayo, we had Shores, we had other candidates who did not do that, and we all know how that went for them. So I think one of the problems that we are still faced with in this country is that the people don't really recognize the power yet. So that's why it's difficult for people to be able to, for politicians to be able to win elections without playing dirty, right? The day that the people really understand their power, I'm not talking about a partial understanding. I'm not talking about playing with primitive, tribal, or religious sentiments. I'm not talking about criticizing one political party for doing something, but when it's mentioned that your candidate did that thing, you get emotional. And no, I'm talking about like for real, the day the people understand their power, that I do not need to go bow down to the altars in Ogun State or the altars at Niger State or whatsoever. I can actually come out and vote because my vote actually counts. Then that is the day that we will see a lot of people be able to win elections in Nigeria without even having money. And I think that as long as we keep on maintaining this ideology of the lesser evil and the bigger evil, the bigger evil is always going to knock out the lesser evil. And that's what happened in this particular election, right? As long as we also keep on promoting these narratives, like, there's a lot of narrative that you hear, most especially from maybe people that support extremely corrupt politicians like the APC. They will tell you, everybody's corrupt. No, we can't have good people. We have good people. We need to get to a point where we stop telling ourselves, like consoling ourselves, telling ourselves all those lies just to make ourselves feel good.
Timmy, do you agree that, or what's your belief that we cannot, it's difficult to win election without playing dirty? That's what you believe?
I believe it's absolutely possible. Absolutely possible.
Impossible.
100% without playing dirty. It's absolutely possible. It's possible.
It's possible to play without playing dirty.
Exactly. Yes.
Even with the internal workings. But you have said that there are people that you mentioned that did not play dirty, but you see how they turned out. Some of them did not win the election.
That's because.
There are two things, Anthony. You can play politics and not win. You can play and win. The question here is how easy it is to play it and win without playing dirty.
Yeah, so if you when I started, I talked about the power of the people. The people don't understand their power yet, right? Most of the things that people are complaining about on this, I heard, is it Badibos? I'm talking about voter intimidation, but we also had instances where people tried to vote for Tinubu in the East and they were intimidated. Videos out there. So let's not be hypocritical about these things. When the people truly understand their power, no one will be able to intimidate them. Right, so you don't complain about something that you're also involved with doing. And I think I've been saying this consistently, that intimidation does not just start on the streets. It starts up online. When people are intimidating people for being able to air out their opinions, their political opinions online, and thinking that when it gets to the streets, it's all going to be rosy. No, it needs to stop totally, right? So the bullying and everything didn't just start on the streets. It started online. Right? It started online. So I think that Nigerians, need to know that you don't need to have any godfathers. At the moment you understand your power, and this is what some people like Mogalu were preaching in 2019. People like Fela Drotoye, people like Showore were preaching that you can actually win elections without having that structure that is so much touted, right?
So we see those things that the likes of Fela Drotoye, Kingsley Mogalu, they were pushing those narratives that you will refer to as the ideal. But when you get on the ground, you discover that those things, they don't work.
And do you know what? I think that the people did not believe all those things until they had this primitive tribal and religious emotions to motivate them into going to try it. And Peter Obi almost won the election, right? It may not happen now, but maybe the next time he contests, it's possible that he can win the election, right? But the people understood a little bit this time around, and they now understand that you don't need APC, you don't need PDP to get 5 million votes or 6 million votes or whatsoever, right? So it is just taking your mind out of all these sentiments. Oh, you cannot win, or you need blah 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 blah. Labour Party actually did a good job this time around, but they did not understand that you don't. The Obasanjo, who is your godfather, who is supporting you, rigged many elections. He rigged many elections. So he's not a saint. The IBB that you're are not a democratically the first and the first elections. So what do you expect that is going to happen to you too? So you can't endorse something and now come back and cry about it. So I think it's high time that we know that we as the people were the ones with the power, and whoever we say would win would actually win. But we need to play it clean. Don't play politics of lesser evil, or else bigger evil will always win. Thank you.
All right. You wanted to respond to that, Tony?
Yeah, I think at the end of all of what we're talking about, it boils down to processes. When you talk about, because I've seen you very, very particularly concerned about this dirty politics.
Because that's the focus tonight. Because there are a lot. The belief is that before the election, there were a lot of buzz that the Nigerian youth should participate. People should come out. They need to get involved. If you cannot run for office now, just come out, be part of it. But I've heard voices of those who seem disappointed that, in fact, amidst all of the buzz and all of the encouragement and inspiration to come out for the election, that there's still a dirty side of this election that will not allow you to progress or achieve your aim, no matter how good a person you are.
So it's very simple. If there is a debt, what do? You take it away. You dry clean your clothes. It's a process. The process starts from the primaries in a political system, right? The primaries. If the political parties decide to adopt direct primaries, right? If they jettison indirect primaries, let's take these things one step by step, right? Take away indirect primaries. Declare direct primaries for all your elective positions. You know what that means? It means that credible persons, there are higher chances of credible aspirants making it as candidates for those political parties, right? So what happens here is you have the delegate system, and the part of the biggest challenge we've had in this country is that delegate system, that indirect primaries that makes some delegates see themselves as very delicate and demigods, right? You have to pass through them. It is that's the first issue you need to address. Secondly, the electoral umpire. When you say you're going to do this and it's going to be transparent, it's going to be credible, the process, that is all. If other than that, elections could be likened as players in a football pitch, right? So before the main match, you would have gone ahead, you would have practiced. You know the wing. The wing is that position you want to you're aspiring for. You know your wing, you know where you play well, you know, your chances of playing well. If you're left-footed, it would rather be a mismatch for you to go and start playing on the right flank, right? So participate where your strength is. So part of the problem is, you know that here you're supposed to run for state assembly, right? But for some reasons, you leave the state assembly and you go and run for House of Reps or go and run for Senate. I recall one of the events I was asked to come and deliver a speech. It was one of the events that was hosted by Yaga, Ready to Run. I met a young man. That was when the Not Too Young to Run was newly passed into an act. He came to greet me and he said, Honorable, thank you for what you have done. You've given us hope. Now we can aspire to, I think he's even a motivational speaker. You can aspire to perspire to do this and that. He was speaking all that. I said, what are you running for? He said, governorship in Cross River State. No, in Akwa Ibom State. I looked at him again. And by the time I hopped into my car, you know what he said? He said, Honorable, please, can I get some money to transport myself back? From every indication, I do not know which party you're representing. I'm not trying to look down on you. But again, you can liken that as someone that was untrained for the football match. And then you suddenly go and grab a jersey and you want to go and play. People should be realistic. I'm following this in two ways. One, the process. And two, the contenders. Be truthful to yourself. Where do you want to serve? What are your purposes for even wanting to vie for those offices? Outline all of those things. Don't just because there is an opportunity in a political party, right? And then you think you have some few naira notes in your pocket. You quickly go there and run for Senate or governorship or whichever position you want to run. No, all of those should stop. Start a process. You want to be featured. You want to play, and you're playing because you want to play for your club side or whichever side you represent to win. You want to win, right? You prepare yourself for that victory. But above that, what you keep talking about playing dirty. I had the Labour Party candidate for Lagos State talk about what happened in the streets, all of those things. For me, I would rather say in politics, I believe he knew that there was going to be such things. If he says he doesn't know, then I put it to him that he was unprepared. He knew where he was running for governorship. He must have followed the antecedents before the emergence of Labour. What has been going on between APC and PDP all this while. I represented Oshodi Solo. So you will not come out today to talk about violence and APC in Lagos State. Before that, you would know that the Lagos State control the Omoniles, they control the Arboros, they control all of those stuff, and they deploy them on election day. What are your countermeasures? It may not be to match force for force. This is where you go back to your drawing board and begin to think, how do I counter these people? I know they are going to come with this MC Olomo boys and the rest of them. I won election in Oshodi Solo. And that is where MC Olomo, Oshodi too. MC controls the whole of Oshodi. But what did I do? I will cite one instance of what I did before election day. My opponent called all the boys, or I choose to call them good guys, yeah? Some call them bad guys. But he assembled all the good guys, called them for a meeting, told them anybody that comes out on that day, machete him down, take him down, do this, do that. He finished all of what he wanted to tell them, gave them some money to ensure that happened. Right? All of them, both the guys that represented courts and all of them were in that meeting. By the time he was done, I also called for the same good guys. Are you listening to me? I called them. I hosted them. Contrary to him that stood them out, gave them money, and they left, I called them in a hotel. They ate well, drank well, felt respected and regarded. By the time we were done, I addressed them. I told them, you see this election, please, I know, going by their different names, you may be the leader of a particular cult, and then this one is another cult. If I go to this cult and give them money, what would I do? I have set the ground for this cult to clash. And I didn't want that to happen. I told them, look, this election does not deserve the blood of anyone to be spilled. I told them that. All of you have parents. You have families. Some of you are married. Some of you have children. And your children are not going to become fatherless because Tony Nwulu is running for election. Let us come to a compromise. You belong to this cult. You belong to this cult. First, before cults, you're all humans and you all belong to families, right? I don't want anybody to slap. Shewa, are you listening to me? I don't want anybody to slap anybody. Look, all I want you guys to do on election day is allow the votes to count. Whoever wins, protect the person. If I win, protect my vote. If my opponent wins, protect his vote.
Well, some people were saying that you won at that time because you are Igbo. And there are a lot of Igbo population,
okay, but
in that area.
Yes, but let us put it this way. Do not forget that my primaries had 22 delegates. 20 were Yorubas, 2 were Igbos. And I was running against 2 Yorubas. One was a prince. And I got 12 votes. One of them got 2. The other got 8. What happened? And mind you, I don't speak Yoruba. I don't hear Yoruba. But I communicated to them. So even the language was not a barrier. But I communicated to them. At least that was the first stage.
You did some homework and it played out. Well. And well, you tried to become governor and it did not play.
And it didn't play out well.
The next time, you'll probably do better.
No, before we even go to the next time, let us even address the fact that my election, you followed it then, Oshodi Solo was rated as the safest constituency in Lagos State. There was no one single person that slapped anybody. So what happened? You call the same guys. So when somebody says, maybe in one word or other, you won't spend money, at some point the party comes to sponsor, mind you, right? The party comes and they give you money. So part of the money I got from the party, while my opponent gave them money to go and fight and kill, I also gave them money. Please stay alive. Do not kill anybody. This is your part payment. After this election, whoever wins, it doesn't matter. Come and take your remaining. So for some people, they will not believe you. But these guys left there. You know all they were saying? Omoibo, this one no one make we kill ourselves. The other one give us money, make we go kill ourselves. But this guy spoke to us, made us understand that after this Saturday, there is life after this Saturday.
Honorable, just give me 1 minute. Let me bring in Prince at P. Ofubu on Twitter. Let me get his view on... Prince, how are you today?
Yes, I'm fine.
Yeah, fantastic.
I'm so happy and getting across to you today. I've been following you through and through. Now, quickly to win an election in Nigeria, it is never, ever, can never, ever be possible. Peter Obi tried it, but could not make it. We almost, and why do I? The people that wanted to make Peter Obi get it was the citizens naturally that were tired of this government. But per se, as a person, you want to try it, it's not possible. You know why? Almost virtually all citizens are being tied politically, even including the news houses. Because I can give you an example. If you want to give a news that is just, the CEO of that organization will start telling you know what it takes, the contracts, the links, the connectors. You know what it takes. So be constructive and believe yourself. So what I'm trying to say in summing, in agreeing to what I'm trying to say is that nobody in Nigeria can participate in an election without playing dirty politics. He will win. He will keep trying for the next 600 years. He will never win. The only people that play politics and fully dirty to the core, those are the people that win politics in Nigeria as of now. That is my take.
But thank you so much,
Finally,
Prince. Yeah.
Finally, I want to take this to you. What I want to say generally is this. I talked to somebody that was running a governorship candidate or whatever in Lagos State. I said it then. I said, see, when you are trying to run for an election, you know the people you are up against. In life, you have what we call defense and attack. If you are not attacking, you should be able to put necessary measures for defense. Not crying only. Crying does not win election. They don't listen to you. What are your critical defensive mechanisms if you want to win? The people are on your side already. What harder to have like what this last caller was saying, which I was so impressed with. Strategic wisdom of defense mechanism with the people on your side, you win election. Not really money. If it was money, Jandon has been there. But when the movement started, there are some key things that all you need to do is strategic and defensive mechanism. Or else this election would have been done deal for Lagos. And also for the presidential decision, but though they take us off. So the summary is that it is very difficult for Nigerians to play politics without being dirty.
All right.
Politics demand and supply.
Thank you so much, Prince. Yeah, there is an interruption in the audio coming from your side, but thank you so much, Prince, for your intervention. I see MC Cube or M Cube rather on Twitter also. I can see your hand up if you want to. Your mic is on if you want to come up now.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Shem.
Good evening.
I just want to stay on the part of that the dirty in politics. For me, what I'm just going to be be a little bit so that I don't digress from the headline. So for me, I think that the dirtiness in politics is just as a result of most of our institutions that have actually derailed from their primary responsibility. For instance, what INEC did in this election, in this 2023 election, actually opened up a window for next people who want to participate in the election to say, okay, I think these are the things that that could actually put me up to victory. So for me, the way I've seen it, and the politics in Nigeria, with winning elections in Nigeria is that most of the institutions that are supposed to put those strict regulatories, and guidelines of how those politics should be played. They really have derailed from their primary responsibility. For instance, when we talk about the law enforcement agents, when you look at INEC in itself, this election also have also portrayed for instance, I am somebody who is aspiring to be maybe to take a political seat in the nearest coming future. With the way it has been played out, I'll be looking at without going the dirty side. For me, dirty is dirty. It is not really ambiguous. It is a straightforward statement. If you say that, if you ask a question, if you say, okay, is a pig dirty or not? Somebody will tell you, yes, a pig is dirty. So for me, the dirtiness in it is being able to induce, suppress, intimidate, all kinds of sorts. But what's the one other question I want to ask, because I also want to play this also back as a question, is that if there were no voter suppression, if there were no free and fair election, if there were no judiciary, will we still have an election in Nigeria that we could say it is not a dirty election? For instance, if you look at the UK election, you look at the US election, you take those examples and then put them side by side to Nigeria election, what can we say that it is missing in our own election? So that's the point I want the honourable and Gadebo to look at. Let's compare countries to countries and say, okay, in this area we have shortfall, and then these are the things that we should do to ensure that the election in Nigeria is right. For me, I really don't want to put it in a way that, oh, this party does this, the other party does this, and then the other party does this. I mean, past is past. Let's look at going into the future. What do we expect INEC to do, or what we expect the law enforcement to do? For me, I also think that the only standing, the only thing that's going to keep the Nigerian trust now is the judiciary in this election. Once the judiciary did not do what they're supposed to do, because if you look at the election from top down, everybody's in court. So for me, I just think that the judiciary is what can actually keep Nigeria in the path of the global eyes looking at us with a bit of integrity. That's the only integrity that we have. It's what judiciary can do right. So for me, I still think that they should, give us what the Americans are doing right, what the UK is doing right, because for me, these are the two standards that Nigerians usually borrow most of their laws and most of their conduct from. So I just think that the two gentlemen should, to try and put those two, just oppose them together and say, okay, in Nigeria, these are the things we should do going forward.
All right, thank you so much, MQ. Yeah, so it takes me to Badebo, for us to wrap up now, because what we intended to achieve with this episode is to look at those things that a lot of people perceive as the dirty side of politics, and how in some ways they have inhibited the good people who want to really run for office, and whether or not there are things that we can change. We just wanted to highlight these issues so that it can inspire those who are really interested in governance in this country. But Mr. Roseviver, if you can, on a final note, I'd like to get your comment and going forward. What would you say tonight that despite all of the reality of the dirty side of our politics and how prevalent it is and how strong it is and the role it plays on our politics, how can one maneuver? What is your own key into getting into the fray without having to put some dirt on your white linen, if you want to, if one can put it that way, or not stain your own dress, no matter how clean you are coming into the game?
Okay, so I think that if you want to clean anything, you have to prepare to get your hands dirty, at least to a certain extent. And there are peculiarities for each election cycle. When Honorable Tony Wulu was running, PDP was in charge of the state structure, the INEC, the police, the army in 2015, right? So they were in charge of that election. Coming down to this election, this is going into the 8th year of APC being in charge of all of these structures. And we should also be aware that after the presidential election, where they were caught off guard because Labour Party won Lagos State, that desperation was like nothing Lagos has ever seen. So it's always very interesting when people talk in hindsight. To say hindsight is always 2020, and there are a lot of work that was done because there's so many people that are protected. I mean, look at still the number of votes that they allocated to us. There are a lot of people that were not injured, right? But the party was not prepared for an all-out war, right? Now, the question now goes to first, the role that judiciary is going to play. in trying to correct these things so that next time people are going to think, you know what, let's not do this because we'll then end up just wasting our energy, wasting our time, and will not get. So we don't create a precedent. But aside from that, I feel that people should always be looking at the time and seasons and everything. That's the first thing. People must constantly engage because now we've seen what is possible. And there is a group, there's a demographic of people. This is not just a movement. People just like to, I think using the word movement is dampening it down. You had a situation where Peter Obi made statistics, data, intelligence, manifesto matter again in our politics. It shows a deputy governor that was reflective of those same ideals and values, right? And then you said that the surge then happened in Lagos State when the debate started, right? So there are a group of people that are looking for those type of politicians. And it's beholding on us to continue to engage those people, galvanize them, bring them into the party structure, and then build the party structure out. Because, yes, like Honorable Tonwulu said, we have the obedience structure. That is there. But now these need to now be very ingrained at the polling units, at the ward, and build this out over 4 years. At that point, it will be very, very difficult to suppress, right? We're very, very difficult to suppress. So that's the work we're doing now, and that's the work that we're engaging in, and we're going to do that consistently over the next 3, 4 years. And for me, I advise people get engaged, get involved. The reason why we're having to do um, so much dirt, to use your word, is because we've left politics to be dirty for too long. And a political party, the ideology, I mean, there was that video of Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu when he said, you know, politics is not a la carte, grab it, take it, snatch it. That's the ideology that they are pushing. And the people around that reflect that ideology. Now, if we create another ideology and a huge amount of people reflect that ideology, we start to change the perception of our politics, right? So we need to get engaged and moving forward based on the way the judiciary decides and sets things are right, is going to determine people's approach to the next election. Like I said, we must always be looking at the times and seasons, and based on that, people are going prepared regardless, either way, for the next election in 2027.
Fantastic, Badiba. Thank you so much, Honorable Nwulu. Your final thought tonight. If anybody, you've got your teeth, you've had your own experience, you've dipped your finger into the fray, you know how things feel and how heated it could be. If there's something you want to tell anybody listening tonight about the dirty side of Nigeria's politics, is reality, we know that it does exist. What would you be saying?
Okay, so I want to correct, well, not necessarily correct, but put it out there. Nobody should be, there was a caller from Twitter that said for you to win elections in Nigeria, you must play dirty. I want people to jettison that thought completely. That is untruth. That cannot be. I mean, and even to the caller too, don't go on with that narrative, or that impression. It's not healthy for our democracy and for our nation building. That said, Shehu, I will still repeat it again. If you want, keep us here till tomorrow morning. It's like you coming out and saying that football is dirty. Football is not dirty, but we remember there was something called the hand of God in football. Do you remember that incident?
I remember. It's a very popular
football is not dirty, but you have people that feign injury. People can jump. You just touch someone and the person simulates and all of that. That does not make football dirty. But yes, just as it is in politics. Politics is not dirty, but you have some people that choose to play dirty. Same way you have players that choose to play rough during football. And then, what are the two things that happens in it? You play rough, a referee, which is in this case supposed to be the INEC, the umpire, issues you either a warning or a red card, whichever one disqualifies you, and all of those processes. Same thing that the referee does. That's what the INEC is supposed to do in football, in election process, right? Like I said, the process. If the referee decides to look the other way, when a goal that is not supposed to be a goal
It's being scored.
is being scored, and it's supposed to be cancelled, if the referee decides to admit it, that is where you now have the issue of arbitration. Go to court, go to FIFA and all the rest of them, right? To go and same thing happens in an election process. That's the point I'm trying to make. If any of the candidates decides to play rough, INEC is there. I love what someone talked about, strengthening our institutions. If our institutions decide, especially in this case, the INEC and also the security institutions, you know, the police, that also in most cases collude with some of those bad players, right? To do all of this nonsense, cut away with the ballot buses and the rest of them that we've seen, right? If every of these institutions decides to do what is right, we're a step to getting it. This thing is not rocket science. It is not. Nobody needs to send rocket to science anymore. Look, from the beginning, the party, if the parties choose direct primaries, it opens up the space for people to come in, participate, vote who they want, and let the most popular, let the better candidates emerge. Right? Come to think of it, from PDP to APC, none of their preferred candidates emerged. None of their preferred candidates emerged. But yes, you're dealing with indirect primaries that had some people outspend some people. Right? Yeah. You're giving a delegate $1,000, and I come out and I give the delegate $2,000. It does not matter. These are select people. And mind you, how do they even become delegates? They also spent money. They lobbied to be elected as delegates. So they have to recoup their investments. Yeah. That is where our problem starts from. So you can't see a cent as a delegate. It doesn't happen anywhere until that part is removed, until all the political parties decide to jettison indirect primaries and go for direct primaries, where you cannot sufficiently, you cannot, it's a lot difficult, because at this point you have all the party members coming to cast their vote. Who are you going to bribe? And who are you going to stop bribing? At that point, it becomes very difficult. But where you have select individuals that lobbied their way into becoming delegates, because first you go and buy form to become a delegate, and then you're going to lobby the people that are going to vote for you to become the delegate. And then you promise those people that during the main election, the primaries election, whatever you're giving, you would also return back to them, or else the next time they will not send you. So you see, most delegates represent a group of people that also voted them to become delegates. Yeah. So that is where the corruption starts. That's where the whole process is not done well, right? So if you get that one, well, now you would see a 26 years old, because he is well learned, right? Good in all ramifications. He comes out to run as good as the multi-millionaire that is beside him. That gives everybody this equal opportunity to stand for that position. So everybody can come in. People will look at you. I like this one. I have known this guy. This guy is sincere. So I love that girl.
So nobody should be afraid of the dirty part of politics. Anybody should come into the fray.
Exactly.
But get started now.
It starts from the parties consciously. So Nigerians, civil society, the media, everybody must task the political parties. United States have done this and it has been working. That is what they are using. Direct primaries. They have a reason why they choose that. Because indirect primaries means, Shehu, I hate your face. And you're a delegate. And because we had a land dispute, you're not going to vote for me. Do you understand my point? Your father hates my father. You're not going to vote for me. So there are primordial issues that could come up when you talk about indirect primaries.
Yeah.
But with direct primaries, all of those things are set aside.
Yeah.
If the party has 1,000 members, all the 1,000 members are qualified to vote. So now the parties will now be more creative. If you want them to vote online, create avenues, let all the registered members, however you wish to do that, it is your headache. But make sure that every other person that is within that arena or online or however you want to administer it, cast their vote to choose who becomes the party. That's the first leg.
Yeah.
When you get that, at that point, that lady that is 30 years, that man that is 40 years, that is not a money bag, that whatever human being you are, that you are qualified, and the people look at you as someone that qualifies eminently to represent them, that is where you will be. People will vote for you. People can collect, and I mean, at that point, let me be frank with you. There is no money bag that will want to bring out money for direct primaries. It doesn't pay you to do so. Because you cannot micromanage the people. Let me tell you how bad it is for the indirect primaries. Sheung, it's so bad that in some cases, a night before the election, the aspirants, depending on who has more money, would go and quarter those delegates, put them in a particular hotel. It's that bad that they put them in the hotel. Some are administered oaths. You see people come out with babalawo, correct babalawo, with everything. They will come and they would swear, take an oath. As we are giving you this money, you are going to vote. If you don't vote, your family will die, or whoever their family, whatever it is. People go to that extent to take oaths. So, when people talk about politics, we should understand what goes behind. If we get this particular end clear, and it's a very simple thing. It's a very simple thing. Immediately, every political party adopts, and then Nigerians should look out for it. Any political party that decides that they are not going to go with direct primaries should be jettisoned.
But the electoral law now gives 3 options of party primaries: indirect, consensus, and direct primaries. So
which
you have a choice.
which still gives that's what I'm saying. At this point, let the political parties, because you see, even in the United States, there is also indirect primaries, but they choose to go with parties that do direct primaries. And that is why it became popular.
In Kogi APC primary, some of the opponents, Senator Smart Adeyemi, Shuabu Abubakar Audu, and the rest, are still saying that the direct primary was rigged.
Well, there wasn't a direct primary in Oshu. What?
In
Kogi, what you had in Kogi was a consensus candidate. It was a consensus. The governor choose.
They held a direct primary.
The governor choose because, the governor selected who he wanted. That was what happened. There was no direct primaries anywhere. If there is a direct primaries, the APC candidates will come in and vote, and it will be transparent, and INEC will monitor it. There was none. So that is one process. If we get that end clear, the second leg is INEC. It's INEC. If I am a registered voter, and on election day, I come out, I got accredited, my dear, when I vote, I want to see my vote count. That's all. And honestly speaking, if other nations are able to even allow their citizens that are not in their countries residing within that period to vote from anywhere they are abroad, I don't see how difficult it should be for INEC to manage an election, deliver a credible election. You talked about beavers. Everybody clapped for you. You said it was going to go straight to your live portal where people would go and, all the big names. It came to the National Assembly. The money you wanted was approved for you. Then suddenly you come out and tell us there are technical glitches. On election day, there wasn't technical glitches a week before then. You didn't know you had a particular day you needed to go. That's the day you now choose to have technical glitches. After you had done mock. mock elections. That is totally unacceptable. Let us deal with that INEC leg.
Yeah.
The second leg is the security agencies. The security agencies. Let us have a police, all of them that work on election day. Let us have them decide to reorientate their people. All of this, let me tell you, there's nothing dirty. All of these are just man-made processes. We are the one sabotaging this whole process. The policeman that probably gets involved in all of this and fails to be punished afterwards. So once we are able to strengthen all of these institutions I've mentioned, what you call dates or dirty politics, you will see it disappear within your eyes. So it is not dirty politics, it is individuals that choose
in the way they
choose to play dirty.
Thank you so much. Honorable Tony Nwulu was a sponsor of the Not Too Young to Run bill, a former member of the House of Reps, and a former governorship candidate in Imo State. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. And I must sincerely also thank Mr. Gbadebo Rose Viver, who is the Labour Party governorship candidate in Lagos. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And how is your son? I mean, the one, your co-speaker.
I'll put him to sleep now.
He's an obedient, isn't he?
He is. Oh, yeah, that's no shit.
All right. Thank you so much indeed, everyone.
All right.
Well, let's know that there is no perfect system, but there should be standards. As established by some of the speakers tonight on the podcast, being apathetic doesn't help. Yes, the level of desperation in our politics is why people play dirty. You only truly lose when you give up, in the exact words of Gbadebo Rose Viver. However, there are those who don't believe in the phrase politics is dirty. They believe the narrative is just a projection of a class of people. And Tony Nwulu is one of them. He says, all politics is local and you must play by the rule. One thing is sure on this podcast, real life and very practical experiences are always shared by people who play on the big stage of politics. There is a lot of lessons to be learned, and that is why we need to keep sharing our experiences. In the final analysis, there should be guiding principles to any endeavor, and a departure from these set of guidelines can be tagged dirty. For Nigeria to boast of a credible, free and fair election, there must be a clean and a level playing field, a process riddled with irregularities and that, well, ridicules the process. And it's not exclusive to one party, that too must be established. This means we all should do better. Thank you all so much for being part of today's podcast. See you next time. I'm sure Kimberly. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us on this edition of Mike On Podcast with Shayon Okimbaloi. Mike On Podcast for the independent mind.